Hi, I'm Mark Kelley, and welcome to the show. Well, the climate may be changing, but not much else is in Copenhagen. Poorer nations walked out briefly today, more protesters dressed up as polar bears, and Canada's image as the dirty old man of the conference was solidified, rock solid, like a fossil. Protesters in both London and Copenhagen took aim once again at our oil sands.
We want the world to know about the tar sands and how the tar sands is now pushing the world into global climate suicide.
But then, hold on, a press release from the Minister of the Environment setting out a bold new climate policy from Ottawa. That turned out to be an elaborate, high-profile hoax by eco-activists. The Prime Minister's press secretary blamed it on Canadian activist Stephen Guilbeault of Équiterre, which prompted this climate change exchange.
You think it's a game, but it's not a game, it's a serious issue.
You're playing games, I'm not playing games. I don't go blaming people personally, publicly.
That's the unfortunate
It's
part.
unacceptable.
We're going to work hard at getting an agreement. You can criticize from the bleachers, Stephen.
And I want an apology.
Well, that hoax pledged very impressive emission reduction targets, and billions for developing nations hit hard by climate change. The real message out of Ottawa? Well, we're still waiting for that. But CBC News has gotten hold of a draft document. They were prepared for presentation to the Harper Cabinet in the weeks leading up to the Climate Change Summit in Copenhagen. And they outline a working draft position of Canada's position on emissions targets. Got all that? Well, the CBC's Terry Milewski has been following the story. Terry.
Well, CBC News has obtained a presentation to Cabinet prepared for Environment Minister Jim Prentice, in which the minister proposes a drastic reduction in Canada's target for cutting industrial greenhouse gases. That's a target set just 2.5 years ago by this government. That overall target was a 20% absolute cut in emissions from 2006 levels by 2020. This new plan comes nowhere close where industrial emissions are concerned. In fact, it aims to achieve only 1/3 of that target. Now, this is a proposal made to Cabinet, not announced as government policy, but it does provide a revealing glimpse of the government's thinking. It also fits with the government's recent emphasis on harmonizing Canada's plan with the US. So instead of that 20% by 2020, the new plan would be a 10% cut, but not absolutely, because it would not be a 10% cut in the emissions we have now, but rather in projected emissions, meaning what they would be if they kept growing. So the growth is built into the math, and that is crucial because emissions from the oil and gas sector are growing very fast. In fact, according to the Cabinet documents we have, oil sands emissions are projected to grow by 165% by the year 2020. This new plan presented to Cabinet would reduce emissions by 10% then, not from what they are, but from what they would be if they continued their rapid growth. Now, the rationale for all of this is harmonizing with the weak legislation before the U.S. Congress in what is known as the Waxman-Markey bill, which passed the House in June of this year and which sets very modest targets for the mining and manufacturing sector. The new Canadian proposal says, fine, let's harmonize with that and call the oil sands a mining operation. But the net effect would be to gut the government's own previous plan so that the total cut in emissions by 2020 for the industrial sector, including oil and gas, would be only 1/3 of what was announced in 2007. Terry Milewski, CBC News, Ottawa.
Okay, so that is the real leaked document that came out. I just want to go back just briefly to this whole fake news release that came out, because it really was quite elaborate. They had a fake news release. That was then followed by a fake denial from the Canadian government. That was then followed by a fake news conference by a delegation out of Uganda. And it was certainly quite a day there as we were watching the things that were unfolding. Apparently this was by a group called the Yes Men. They've been known for doing these things before. They're a Milwaukee-based group. We actually contacted them. They said that they didn't know anything about it, sent us an email saying that they hear those responsible can't speak about it tonight, but will be revealing tomorrow all about this at 1300 Copenhagen time, so we'll be standing by for that. And before the Copenhagen Summit on Climate Change began last week, we heard from 16-year-old Alexandria Mitchell from Abbotsford, BC. She raised money to pay her way to Copenhagen as a youth delegate, eager to bring on her own environmental concerns to the world stage. And we thought, let's check in and see how she's perceiving what's going on with a bit of this chaos that's happening in Copenhagen. She joins us now. Hey, Alexandria, you must have heard of this, this fake email or the fake news release today. What'd you hear from on the ground today?
Oh, you bet I did. I heard a little bit about it. The first thing I heard was the press release that came out. But again, there's not a lot of information coming from things, but we get some of that stuff. So it was interesting to hear about. And I think things are definitely heating up in terms of people reacting to different things that are happening, especially from the Canadian perspective.
Yeah, and that's it. I mean, this is all part of a campaign that environmental activists have had to sort of try to shame the Canadian government for its position. How do you feel as a Canadian youth delegate? Are you feeling any of that, those perceptions or that backlash?
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, it's been interesting because I brought a lot of pins to go and trade with people, and the Canadian pins haven't been that popular. And it's been a little bit unfortunate in some ways, just in the sense that it's kind of the erosion of the Canadian legacy in terms of our international standing. I think we're really respected amongst the international community for our work in peacekeeping and human rights, but suddenly with climate change, our international reputation is really, really being damaged by the lack of action our government is taking.
Well, I can certainly hear your raspy voice, which I assume means that you have been busy talking and meeting with people. Tell me about, I mean, when we spoke before you went to the conference, you were quite keen about getting over there to participate, to observe. What are your impressions as you watch this? Because I certainly, for someone on the sidelines, I'm thinking, what are they actually accomplishing over there? And I don't see any signs of it. What do you see?
Well, you know, I still have to be optimistic, and I still have to hope that the people that are representing us as just citizens of different governments all across the world, I hope that they're going to pull together, and I hope that they're going to come up with something that's really effective in terms of climate change. At the same time, although these UN discussions are very important, I see that there's definitely a huge amount of value in what happens in what you do in your home provinces and your home cities. Those are really, really important things to focus on. So I know that the work for me is coming when I get back to Abbotsford and when I get back to British Columbia to see what type of change I can affect at home, because that's really where I'm going to be able to make a difference.
Okay, I know, and I know you have the optimism, and as a 16-year-old, I certainly hope you would still hold on to that optimism. But again, what are you seeing? What are your impressions of what you're seeing that transpires in front of you?
I'm seeing a whole crazy wave of events that are happening right here in Copenhagen. The Bella Center is packed full. There's a capacity of 15,000 people, and I think that as of today, there were 40,000 registered. So a lot of people as of tomorrow are going to be losing their delegate badges and won't be able to even enter the Bella Center. It's just absolute insanity. There's so much going on. And I think it's very positive in some ways because there's so many side events. There's so many opportunities to learn about different issues and connect with people in different countries. It's been really, really great in that sense. But in another sense, it's sort of this total chaos that it's hard to see exactly where we're going with things, and it's hard to get a lot of focus. But I do believe that the conference is very important, and it has definitely been interesting, and it definitely has been a learning opportunity, and there's a lot of information that I'm going to bring back home with me in the next couple of weeks.
But ultimately, your feeling then is it's great to see what they're doing on this sort of international level, but you think change is going to come at a local level by people who are trying to push for that change rather than waiting for the governments to impose that change.
Well, I think that the change will happen at a local level unless we have the political willpower. Right now, what we're seeing from the Canadian government, as you mentioned with the release of the leaked document this evening, we don't have the political willpower here in Canada, and that's really unfortunate. I think if we did, the conference would have a different type of a spin on it. I think we'd be able to achieve a lot of different things if we did have that willpower. And I think the only way to incite that willpower is for us as Canadians to be on the phone, be on the email, and to start talking about it and to start making it an issue with our government. To say, hey, you know what? Canadians care, because it is really bothering me being here in the sense that so many people that are part of that international community don't believe that Canada cares about the environment, and that isn't true. I'm here, I care, and there's a lot of Canadians, especially young people. There's at least 60 young people that are here that care about the environment. We're Canadian, and we really want to see things done differently.
I admire your spunk, Alexandria. Okay, listen, be the change. That's the thing you got to live by over there, and I hope you get your voice back And thanks for making time to talk to us tonight.
Well, thanks so much. And you know what? You can follow any of the information if you want updates at all. You can just visit plugouttunein.com, and I'll be posting updates and videos the whole time.
Right on. Okay. Thanks, Alexandria.
All right. Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.